Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time it is a review of the 1995 thriller Outbreak. Try to remain calm. Now, Outbreak is a film that, when it came out in 1995, actually did pretty well in the box office. It made $189 million on a budget of $50 million. Critics were kind of mixed on it. Some critics really liked it. Other critics weren't really that impressed with it. Has a pretty good rating on a Rotten Tomatoes in terms of the overall audience score. And it's a film that I've always felt is an incredibly underrated gem. I personally find it to be the best of the viral thrillers that deal with a virus. It may not be as realistic as something like Contagion, but to me personally, it's a much more entertaining film. It has better characters. It goes by at a much better pace. And overall, to me, it just has more of an impact than something like Contagion, at least for me personally. The film is honestly pretty impressive for a movie that was rushed into production. This film was only made because the producer Arnold Kopelson and Warner Brothers, they lost the bidding war on a film adaptation of the novel The Hot Zone, which was a hot bestseller in the 90s. 20th Century Fox won the bidding war, so they were the ones that were given the green light to adapt the book into a film. And they even had already casted a star. Robert Redford was going to star in it alongside with Jodie Foster. They already got a director in Ridley Scott. And it was slated to, I believe, be a summer release in 1995. But something happened. There were some issues with the script. There were some problems in terms of creative differences. And ultimately, the project was shelved and wound up in development hell until many, many years later when The Hot Zone was finally adapted into a miniseries. But that wouldn't happen until long after 1995. Arnold Kopelson and Warner Brothers, they didn't know this. They were assuming, just like pretty much everyone else in the industry, that The Hot Zone was going to be a movie. It was going to come out, and it was going to be one of the hottest films of the year. And they saw that this new Ebola outbreak that had happened in the media and in real life in Africa, they saw the potential for that to be a really compelling and profitable film to capitalize on that. So Warner Brothers put this film on the fast track as a result. And by fast track, I mean they didn't really put a whole lot of time, effort into the screenplay. There were a lot of different rewrites that went on. So it's one of those movies where it is honestly pretty impressive how good it is, considering that it was initially conceived as just a strictly cash grab. It was conceived as a cash grab to capitalize on the craze that was going on with the Hot Zone and the first publicized outbreak of Ebola. So the film is directed by Wolfgang Petersen, and to me personally, this is one of his best films when it comes to his direction. I thought he did a fantastic job directing this film. I thought it had a great look to it, a great feel to it, had the right size and scope. The way he shot the sequences that dealt with an outbreak of Ebola, I thought were spectacularly shot. In particular, I really loved how he had the camera move around in a very unique way. The camera lives and breathes. It gives the virus more character. It actually makes the virus appear as if it's living and breathing, which it is technically, but not in the way that we would normally view something as being alive. But the way that the virus is shot and the way that especially the transmission of the virus is shot in this film is shot in a way that's very dynamic and it's really quite a sight to see. It's really well done. And overall, I just thought it was some great direction. The moments where there needed to be tension were really well done in terms of directing to enhance the tension and the suspense. And yeah, just a fantastic job by Wolfgang Petersen. So it featured a script by Lawrence Dworet and Robert Roy Poole. Um, It also has some uncredited rewrites, I think, by some other screenwriters who came in and tried to punch up the dialogue or punch up the film. I know Maya Angelou, of all people, actually was involved with writing some dialogue, and so was Dustin Hoffman, but they were cut out of the film. Those bits of dialogue were not actually in the finished movie. But other than some moments of melodrama and some lines of dialogue that are a little hokey, I think the script is solid. I think it's a solid script. I particularly like how it deals with the drama with the virus and how people are put under quarantine and how the military gets involved. And also the hunt for the cure that involves this monkey. Uh, I like the way that is handled, and it has some really great lines of dialogue that are just hilarious and memorable. So that's another aspect of the script that I really appreciate and I really like. Uh, the screenplay also does a wonderful job with making these characters likable, charismatic, and engaging, which enhances the film's suspense and the film's thrills. To me, a thriller relies upon its characters. If you don't buy into the characters, if you don't like them, whether they have a personality or there's enough character development, if you don't like them, then the pacing suffers considerably, and it's not very thrilling because you don't care whether they live or die. You can call it campy, you can call it cheesy, you can call it melodramatic, you can call it cliched, you can call it whatever you want, but with characters that are written in ways where there's things about them that draw you to them, like the characters in this film, you have a much better movie when it comes to thrilling an audience, or maintaining suspense, or intrigue. That's just me personally. So, yeah, I definitely think the strength of the film is definitely in its characters. Also in the moments in the film that are straight out of a horror film, when it shows the effects of this virus on people. People bleeding out from the eyes, the mouth. It's a pretty horrific sight to see. And the film didn't even go as far as it could have. I mean, there are actual photos and actual images of Ebola that are even more terrifying than the ones that you see in this film. The film would have been rated X if they were as accurate to the real life cases as it possibly could. But it got close. It definitely got close. Those scenes in the beginning in Africa are really rough to watch. Another thing about the script that I liked is that it did have moments where it showed how people can be overly reactive and panicked in ways that are dangerous not only to themselves but to everyone else around them. It really showed a realistic portrayal of what would happen if there was a mass quarantine. If there was a mass quarantine by the military, there would be a lot of people who would try to do the same kind of thing where I'm going to get in my truck and I'm going to try to get out of the quarantine zone. And then the military has to be forced to act and shoot them down. Like that would happen. If that happened right now in your town, you know that there's going to be someone who's going to try to do that. So it was a fairly accurate portrayal of what people would do if they were in this type of situation. Also a fairly accurate portrayal of how the virus might spread and not necessarily accurate portrayal about how quickly it adapts, because in this film, Ebola adapts super quickly and goes from being transmitted through contact with bodily fluids or open skin to airborne. It's a great scene. It's just, it's a really well put together sequence when Dustin Hoffman realizes it's airborne, but that doesn't mean that it's really a realistic portrayal of what the virus like this would do. Like, for example, COVID-19 is not all of a sudden going to mutate and adapt and become some other thing in the near future. That's not going to happen. It might adapt, but then it would be a new strain altogether. It would no longer be COVID-19. Also, the film shows them get a vaccine a lot faster than they probably would be able to now, but that's also because the military had hoarded some prior version of this vaccine to a different strain of the virus, so they were able to use that to fast track the process. We really don't necessarily have that kind of thing at our disposal, so and normally in cases like this, you don't have that at your disposal, period. So you just have to start from scratch. But despite some moments that are a little inaccurate, despite some melodramatic bits here and there, I thought it was a well-written script with some genuinely compelling characters and drama and some great lines of dialogue. Like, for instance, the line of dialogue when Sam Daniels, Dustin Hoffman's character, he's talking to his commanding officer, who is one of his commanding officers, General Billy Ford, played by Morgan Freeman, and he's talking to him as a friend, and he's trying to get him to do more to potentially curb this outbreak and do something about this. And just a very memorable line of dialogue and some great line delivery by Dustin Hoffman, where he's just like, if one of them have it, then 10 of them will have it, and if one of them leaves Cedar Creek, then we're in deep fucking shit. And we're already in deep fucking shit! I always thought that was a great scene. And then there's other, like, fun lines of dialogue, like, for instance, when Sam is trying to convince one of these, the sergeant who is at a military facility to set up a transport for Sam Daniels. The guy's like, this could mean my stripes, sir. And he's like, it'll mean your ass if you don't get your finger on the phone. Finger it. And there's also some really genuinely compassionate lines of dialogue too. Like, for instance, near the end of the film, when Sam is trying to convince these pilots of this plane who are being ordered to drop a bomb on Cedar Creek, this small town, to eradicate the virus and to prevent a further outbreak. He's trying to get them to not drop the bomb because they have a vaccine. They figured it out. So there's some genuinely compassionate lines of dialogue like this. If you think I'm lying, drop the bomb. If you think I'm crazy, drop the bomb. But don't drop the bomb just because you're following orders. And then on top of that, you have those genuinely compassionate lines of dialogue, and then you have more badass, fun lines of dialogue, like when Sam tells the villain of the piece, General McClintock, played by Donald Sutherland, to fuck off. So General McClintock is in his own helicopter trying to get Sam, who is in a helicopter with Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character, who Major Salt. He's trying to get them to stand down. And so he's like, with all due respect, Colonel Daniels, If you do not follow us to Travis Air Force Base, I will blow you out of the sky. General, with all due respect, fuck you, sir. I just love that. I love that scene. I love that line of dialogue. So the script is full of lines like that. It's really got a great sense of dialogue, in terms of dialogue that's memorable, that sticks with you, that either makes you smile or actually gets you in another way. There's another exchange between Casey, Kevin Spacey's character, and Sam Daniels, Dustin Hoffman, where they're looking at this virus, and they've been up for days straight trying to figure things out. And Casey, he's like, I hate this bug. Oh, come on, Casey. You have to admire its simplicity. It's 1/1000th our size, and it's beating us. So what do you want to do? Take it to dinner? No. What then? Kill it. So yeah, I genuinely think the script is quite well done, despite some moments of melodrama and some lines of dialogue that might be a little corny. But this, as good as the script is, I don't think the screenplay would really be as effective as it is on film without such a great cast. I mean, you got Dustin Hoffman as Sam Daniels. Honestly, my favorite performance by Dustin Hoffman. He's done some other great performances, don't get me wrong. Kramer versus Kramer, Captain Hook and Hook, and plenty of other just great performances, because he's a genuinely great actor. But what really draws me to this character that he plays in this, and to this performance, is how different it is to the majority of the type of roles that he takes. He's not technically an action hero in this, but he's still a hero. And you rarely got the chance to see Dustin Hoffman be this kind of character, who doesn't take any shit from anyone, isn't afraid to tell the general to fuck off. You know, it's this nice dynamic that you didn't really see very often in his filmography. Rene Russo is a good companion, and essentially co-star for the film as Roberta Keogh. Morgan Freeman delivers another good performance as Billy Ford. I really liked how the character was multifaceted when it comes to his status, for whether he was good or whether he was part of the military. He was one of those characters that was not necessarily a good guy, but wasn't necessarily a bad guy either. He made his mistakes. He was siding with the military and with McClintock, and he was trying to cover things up, but eventually he does the right thing by the end of the movie, but that doesn't necessarily absolve his part in making things worse. So I liked that about the character, and I thought Morgan Freeman did a good job playing that character who's got these inner conflicts. He's got these secrets that are clearly eating away at him. Kevin Spacey, yes, he's not a good person, but it was a decent performance. Cuba Gooding Jr., I liked his role. He didn't have a whole lot to do. He was more of a chauffeur for Dustin Hoffman. He was there for some witty banter. He was also the guy who fired the shot to take out the monkey. But you know, he did fine. It wasn't anything amazing, but he did fine. The rest of the cast is good too, but mainly that's the main cast. I mean, you have Patrick Dempsey, who plays the first person who gets the virus and starts spreading it. You have bit roles by other actors like J.T. Walsh, and of course Donald Sutherland. I had to definitely mention Donald Sutherland. I almost forgot to mention Donald Sutherland, which would have been an absolute mistake on my part, because he's very vital to this film and its overall success, because he plays such a great, smarmy, slimy villain. He always does a great job at playing those kind of characters. And this film is no exception. And apparently he wasn't the original casting choice. Joe Baker was originally cast to play this role, but the producers decided they wanted a Oliver North kind of character to play McClintock, and they decided Donald Sutherland was the best choice for that. And I think it was the better choice overall, because Donald Sutherland was just a great foil for Dustin Hoffman in this. Dustin Hoffman also wasn't apparently the first choice to play Sam Daniels. In fact, the studio was really heavily courting Harrison Ford. He turned it down, and eventually they went with Dustin Hoffman. But that wasn't even their second choice. Dustin Hoffman wasn't really on their radar until after actors like Sylvester Stallone and Mel Gibson turned down the role. Can you imagine Stallone in a movie like this? I can't really imagine Stallone as this character. Maybe he might have pulled it off. I don't know. He's a talented actor, so but it definitely would have been different if Stallone was in this film. But I'm glad that Dustin Hoffman got the role, because it enabled him to do something different with a lot of the typical sort of characters that he plays. That's why I also don't mind Sphere, even though Sphere is kind of a overloaded movie and isn't really a great film by any means. I still like it okay because of the cast and because it enables Dustin Hoffman to do another role like Outbreak, where he's playing the hero in a lot of ways. So, trying to think of more things that I want to say about the movie. Features a decent score by James Newton Howard. It isn't amazing. It isn't particularly super memorable. It has its moments, but at times it kind of sounded a little stock to me. That's one aspect of the movie that I thought wasn't really great. Although there were some bits of the score that I did like. The opening credits, some of the other pieces throughout the film. Personally, I would have rather have had Jerry Goldsmith do the score for this. I think he would have done an amazing job and would have put the film on an even higher level. It's wonderfully, just gorgeously shot by Michael Ballhaus, a cinematographer. And it features some genuinely excellent editing by Neil Travis. And I definitely wanted to give Neil Travis a lot of credit, because there are so many scenes in this that rely upon some genuinely great editing in order to be as effective as they are. The sequences that show the POV of the virus spreading through the air ducts or spreading through a movie theater, they rely upon some really pinpoint editing to really make them pop. And he was totally up to the task, and he deserves a lot of credit for that. But yeah, those sequences, especially the movie theater sequence, especially now, is even more terrifying. Because it's just one of those scenes where you know what's going on, but because the other people in the room, in the theater, they don't know what they're being exposed to, it makes everything so genuinely harrowing and nail-biting to watch, because you know that they're being exposed to this virus. It's going into their mouths. It's going to do a number on them, but they don't know that. And in a lot of ways, that dynamic is so powerful and so effective in thrillers, where you have setups like that, where there's something bad is going to happen to these people on the screen, but they don't know, but we know, and that just ratchets up the tension and the suspense, because you're sitting there and you're like, you're really on pins and needles, because you're like, no, 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 and especially with something like this. But anyway, I don't really know what else to say about Outbreak, except for a film that's 128 minutes, it goes by at a pretty good pace because of strong characters, strong performances, and a strong overall plot and screenplay. I definitely would recommend checking this out if you haven't already. I know most people already have, considering uh, our own outbreak that we're dealing with right now as I record this video. But it's still a film that deserves to be watched and appreciated, even if we're not even in that sort of situation, just as a genuinely great thriller. Anyway, thank you for watching my review of Outbreak, and as always, I'll see you later. See ya.